What about my summer home? The Americans are checking there as well. My mistress's apartment? They checked there first, sir. What about the bunker under La Comandancia? Sir, that's literally the first place they attacked. I'm running out of options here. On Christmas Eve, Noriega finally found sanctuary in the most logical place for a drug trafficking dictator, the Vatican Nunciature, which is basically an embassy of the Pope. General Noriega? What are you doing here? Seeking sanctuary. It's Christmas Eve, you have to let me in. Religious tradition and all that. I'm pretty sure that's not how it works, but I'll have to check with Rome. The Americans, not wanting to storm the Pope's house and cause an international incident, set up outside and began their plan to drive Noriega out. And that plan was playing extremely loud heavy metal music day and night. Sir, we have just set up speakers outside the Nunciature. Excellent. What are they playing? Oh man, we've got a great playlist. Welcome to the Jungle, Panama by Van Halen, You're No Good, Wanted Dead or Alive. Do you think that last one's maybe a bit too on the nose? Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the point, sir. After several days of musical torture, diplomatic pressure finally convinced Noriega to surrender on January 3rd of 1990. Fine, I'll come out. Just please stop playing We're Not Gonna Take It for the friggin' 87th time. Can you wait a second? We were just gonna change it to Metallica. That's even worse! According to the Pentagon, the invasion resulted in 23 U.S. military deaths and 325 wounded, while 314 PDF members were killed. However, the civilian death toll was much more controversial. On January 31st, 1990, the Joint Chiefs switched mission names. Operation Just Cause officially ended, and Operation Promote Liberty began. This was basically the US military's way of saying, okay, we're done blowing stuff up now. Now we're gonna build some schools, okay? Okay, let me get this straight. Yesterday, I was shooting at people. And you mean to tell me today, I'm building a bridge? That's right, we call it flexible career development. Within 10 days, President Guillermo Endara, remember him? The guy who actually won the election before getting beaten up? Well, he formally abolished the Panamanian Defense Forces. A U.S.-supervised training program then assembled the Panama Public Forces, basically just police and border guards, under strict civilian control. Army engineers rebuilt bridges, while civil affairs teams organized a money for weapons amnesty program that bought back more than 7,000 firearms in its first 6 weeks. Turn in your guns, get cash. It's like a reverse pawn shop. Hey, how much for this assault rifle? $200. Whoa. Alright, great. I'll be back with 6 more. The U.S. authorities also housed roughly 20,000 displaced residents of El Chorrijo in hastily erected apartments. Unfortunately, a later audit found many of these units crumbling within 2 years. As for Noriega, he was extradited to Miami, where he was convicted of racketeering and drug trafficking in 1992. He would ultimately spend time in prisons in the United States, France, and finally Panama, before dying in a Panamanian hospital in 2017 at the ripe old age of 83. Operation Promote Liberty officially ended in September of 1994 after the peaceful election of Ernesto Perez Valladares and the ratification of a constitutional amendment that forever bans a standing army in Panama. This makes Panama, alongside Costa Rica, one of the most demilitarized countries in the Western Hemisphere. It turns out that sometimes the best defense is no defense at all. The invasion of Panama shows us a lot about how US foreign policy operated at the end of the Cold War. First, they supported a dictator because he was anti-communist. Then they turned on him when his drug trafficking became too embarrassing. Finally, they invaded his country with overwhelming force, captured him, put him on trial in Florida, and rebuilt Panama's government from scratch. After the dust settled and the heavy metal music stopped blaring, the international community had some thoughts about the whole invading Panama thing, and those thoughts were not particularly kind. I call this emergency meeting of the United Nations General Assembly to order. The topic: did the United States just do something extremely uncool? In our defense, we had a really good reason. And that reason was? Noriega had killed a Marine. Also, the drugs. And freedom? On December 29th of 1989, the United Nations General Assembly voted 75 to 20 to condemn the invasion and called for the immediate withdrawal of all US troops. It was like getting a strongly worded note from your homeowners association, except the HOA was the entire world. The UN Security Council also drafted an even sterner condemnation, but it failed because the United States, United Kingdom, and France all exercised their vetoes. Even the Organization of American States, which is basically the America's Club, demanded that the US pull its troops out of Panama. As your neighbors, we formally request that you stop invading other neighbors. We hear your concerns and we will take them into consideration. So, you'll leave? No, but we've considered it. Despite international condemnation, post-war polling conducted by CBS and La Prensa showed that about 9 in 10 Panamanians actually approve of the toppling of Noriega. It was like when everyone at school hates the bully, except the kids he was actually bullying. This created what scholars call an ambiguous moral ledger, which is a fancy way of saying, was this a good thing or a bad thing? Well, it's complicated. On one hand, they removed a dictator. On the other, they were the ones who initially supported him, and in the process of getting rid of him, killed hundreds of civilians and violated international law. Human rights organizations like America's Watch and Physicians for Human Rights kept the invasion alive in public debate by highlighting the discrepancies in casualty reports. Remember the difference between 300 and 3,000 deaths? That's a pretty big margin of error. From a military perspective, Operation Just Cause became a textbook example of the US rapid deployment doctrine that would make another appearance just 6 months later in Kuwait, when Iraq decided it wanted a beach vacation. Let's review what we've learned from Panama. Joint special operations, precision night assaults, stealth aircraft, and real-time satellite links. So basically, overwhelming technological superiority? Exactly. Why fight fair when you can fight with F-117s? The invasion showcased all the fancy toys the US military had developed during the Cold War but never got to use against the Soviets. See? I told you the stealth fighter would come in handy someday. It was kind of like using a flamethrower to light a birthday candle, but yes, it worked. In Panama itself, the memory of the invasion evolved slowly. Attempts to declare December 20th a national day of mourning were vetoed in 2007 by then-President Martin Torrijos, who was coincidentally the son of Omar Torrijos, the guy who signed the Canal Treaties with Jimmy Carter back in 1977. It wasn't until December 19th, 2019, 3 decades after the invasion, that Panama finally enacted legislation making December 20th a national day of mourning, institutionalizing annual flag-lowering ceremonies and public debates over reparations for the victims of El Chorrillo. The legacy of the invasion is like one of those optical illusions where some people see a duck and others see a rabbit. The US sees a successful military operation that removed a drug-trafficking dictator. Many Panamanians see it as the day their neighborhood burnt down. The UN sees it as a violation of sovereignty. But the Panama invasion also marked the beginning of a new era in US foreign policy. With the Cold War winding down, the United States was now free to flex its muscles without worrying about Soviet retaliation. Panama was just the appetizer. The main course would come soon in the Middle East.